So after waiting a whole week for the 4th episode of the show, this episode aimed to get the whole truth about what happened to Luke and what drove him to the position of where he wanted to kill Professor Brink. With Sam and Emma forming a connection, Marie and Jordan forming one, and the episode seemingly just cutting to black mid-sentence, let's break down and explain all that there was to take away from it, and answer why it did that. So let's get into it. Here is Gen V Episode 4 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Why did the episode cut to black? This was definitely the weirdest part of the whole episode, and it's weird to say that when there's a guy despoiling holes every time that he sees one, and another guy's you-know-what getting exploded. After the climax of the episode, we saw that as Sam was restrained, Marie said, "We're gonna make this right, I promise, and then it cut out. I imagine she was going to say, "We'll protect you." Then she woke up in Jordan's bed with them alongside her, looking like they'd spent the night together. This was super confusing. The only thing that was similar to this was when Rufus used his powers to cause her to black out, and then she woke up inside of his dorm room. However, I don't think that's the case here, so let's look at some theories. The first, an editing issue. Okay, it's not going to be that, let's move on. The second, due to getting Rufus's blood inside of her mouth and it ultimately circulating around her system, could that have caused her to black out and just forget about everything that could have eventually happened? That to me feels like the most likely option about what it is that could have happened. There's a moment where we see it on her tongue, and with that happening prior to her going to Cardosa's house, by the time it went around her system, the same thing could have happened. The third, Marie could have lost some blood in the process after cutting the hands to utilize her powers, and then that could have caused her to black out. The show could be pulling our leg in making out that they spent the night together in an intimate way, but Jordan could have just laid her down in her bed as they could have just slept in the same bed. But the fact that they've got no clothes on, it makes me think that that's not the case. And the fourth, could the fact that she kissed Jordan moments earlier have something to do with that? With them kissing, could it have meant that she blacked out and just didn't remember anything about what happened, and for her to become infatuated with Jordan, an arm to their powers that we've not seen before? There's no true way to tell right now, but I feel we'll definitely get an answer in the next episode. Personally, I think it could be the Rufus and blood in mouth theory. Emma and Sam. Emma and Sam had a really interesting arc in this episode of the show, so much so that it's clear to see that a romantic spark is definitely developing between them. Not only because of the physical attraction between them, but also because there's a relatability between the both of them. And I think for the first time, Emma's found somebody that's similar to herself and isn't casting judgment upon her. They've both seen each other at what one would consider their low points, Sam in the woods and Emma using her powers as she's ashamed of her powers. And the fact that they've both been accepting of each other, and if anything, shown more of an interest and sworn loyalty to stand by one another, it shows the weight of the feelings that they have. We saw that Emma revealed to Sam that Luke was dead, and personally, I thought it was going to be a bit more explosive than that, especially considering he was lied to. But he didn't blame Emma for lying to him. If anything, it just incited the fear within him that she was going to leave him, something which I don't think is the case. With Luke leaving him, and I imagine his mother and father doing the same, it's probably one of his biggest insecurities. What I loved about this episode was that we got to take a look inside of Sam's mind and see the voices that tell him to do things. The way that the show has treated this in a comical manner by making the voices that he sees be puppets, the most harmless things in the world, but they essentially tell him to do the most bloodiest and horrific things in the world, is quite a cool treatment. Hence why we saw him head over to Dr Cardosa's house in order to seek revenge on the treatment that he had whilst in the woods. We heard that Sam was far stronger and far more powerful than Luke ever was, and that was an interesting revelation. We saw a glimpse of some other powers that he has, such as the extremely far and high jumping, as well as the extreme strength, so I wonder if there is anything else in his arsenal. With him fighting the group and the only real challenge being Jordan, Emma had to eat loads to get really big so that she could pin down Sam, and she restrained him, and she reiterated that they were going to be in it together, showing that all Sam wants is the reassurance that he's not alone. After spending a lifetime alone in facilities, it's definitely one of his biggest fears, so it makes sense as to why that's the thing that will always calm him down. I think the group will escape from immediate trouble, but the fact that Cardosa saw all of them there, it's most likely going to mean that Shetty is going to be onto them. This may change her viewpoint of not touching the top 5 in the rankings. Andre Andre's story in this episode was showing just how different he was to his father and highlighting that he actually wants to do good in the world and deserve his place as #1 ranking, rather than just saying things to please people in the public eye. He's distraught over the fact that his father is fully aware of what's going on under the university in the woods, and it seems to be something that he can't get past. With us seeing him crushing his father's statue's head and there being a look in his eye like we've not seen before, we're going to see the both of them drift further and further apart. It seems as though Andre's father is trying to live vicariously through his son and get him into the 7 because that was always his dream, hence why he doesn't seem to have a moral compass and is prepared to cause whatever damage in the process. So I think there will come a time where something may end up happening to Andre's father due to Andre being so involved in the taking down of the woods. Jordan didn't have too large of an involvement in this episode other than when we saw them kissing Marie after she admitted that Jordan was the person that was fighting off Luke instead of her. And also we saw them in the final battle that took place in the house. This moment showed just how powerful Jordan was, and they were totally badass, sucking up the punches that Sam was throwing, dodging them, and then returning force that was twice as strong. It's clear to see that Jordan could be the most powerful one out of them all, and it was great to see them emit that level of power. With the episode finishing with Marie in the same bed as Jordan, it showed us that they definitely spent the night together, so I imagine we'll find out more about that in the next episode. Marie finally admitted that she wasn't the person that fought off Luke in the first episode of the show, and it was because Tek Night utilized his abilities to get it out of her. This is something that doesn't feel like that big of a deal at the moment, but I think it's going to shoot her down the rankings at a rapid pace. She essentially said that she ran and did nothing, whereas everybody else had been told that she was the hero, so they're going to feel as though they've been lied to and most likely knock her down so far, maybe even out of the top 10. With Shetty most likely also being made aware of the fact that she was at Cardosa's house, she may lose loyalty to the student. I imagine Sam will most likely inform them all that Shetty is in on the woods, which will change Marie's viewpoint of her anyway. There was an interesting moment in this episode where we saw that when Rufus was looking inside of Marie's mind, he mentioned how she was looking for 2 people, Emma because she was missing, and also her sister. So it showed us that her sister is still at the forefront of her mind, and she's actively looking for her. With us hearing about an email address being found for her, I wonder if we'll see her make contact. That's definitely the main thing that sits inside of Marie's mind and causes her trouble, along with what happened to her mother and father. So I feel we will get some kind of resolution with that as time goes on. The moment in this episode where we saw Marie utilize her powers to cause an uncomfortable explosion on Rufus was something else. Visually, it was disgusting, and you can only imagine the amount of pain that one can emit. With Rufus having access to people's mind, I imagine he's able to shut it down, hence why we saw her wake up after being in a blacked out state. Overall review. I thought this was a great episode of the show. It moved on from the first 3 in a natural way which allowed us to pick up directly from where we left off. I think all of the characters have struggles and it's easy to relate to them. Despite the fact that they're soups, we're seeing the human side to them and that they do suffer with the exact same kind of issues. All of the romances are also interesting to see. I don't know if it's a bit overkill having every main character caught up with a love interest, but I think that's something that we'll find out about and be able to draw a conclusion on the more the episodes go on. I thought Tek Night was a great inclusion to the episode of the show and his powers were actually pretty awesome. Other than the whole being addicted to despoiling holes, he was a cool, calm and collected character and he provided a lot of comic relief. The story, despite being halfway through the season, very much feels like we're just getting started, and I can't wait to see where it's going to go from here. Sam's powers look incredible, but Jordan is the one that has the powers that personally I wish I had. Not the whole changing from a boy to a girl thing, but the sheer strength, agility, and energy that they emit. It's awesome, and it made light work of dealing with Sam. The show has stayed true to the parent show and I respect it for that, but it's managed to thrive and shine in its own right whilst not needing to rely on the boys to be good. I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next episode. Bring it on. So, there you have it, Gen V Episode 4 Ending Explained. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.